The Galactic Council chamber shimmered under the soft glow of twin suns filtering through the crystalline dome of Xylos Prime. Hundreds of delegates from over 200 species sat in concentric rings, their forms as varied as the stars they came from. Some scaled, some feathered, some floating in anti-grav bubbles. At the very center of it all, one chair remained empty. It was simple, made of pale lunar oak from Earth's moon, polished smooth by decades of use. The human delegation seat. For 83 standard cycles, someone from Earth or its colonies had occupied that chair, arguing, negotiating, sometimes shouting, but always present. Today it held only silence and a small silver data capsule resting on the armrest. Speaker Vorak of the Cathari stood at the central podium, his four eyes scanning the assembly with quiet gravity. His voice, deep and resonant, carried through the chamber without amplification. "We gather under unusual circumstances," he began. "The Sol delegation has not responded to 3 formal summons. All human outposts, vessels, and communication hubs have fallen silent over the past 6 solar months. No distress calls, no evacuations, no explanations." A murmur rippled through the chamber. Clicks, whistles, low hums of concern and suspicion. Humans had always been loud, messy, and unpredictable. Their sudden quiet felt like a storm holding its breath. In a side chamber, Eli Dawson sat alone, wrapped in a thin thermal blanket. He was the last known human outside Earth's system, quarantined for weeks after exposure to a rare Xanthar respiratory virus. Pale and thin, his dark hair unkempt, he stared at the wall screen showing the council floor. He hadn't expected to be here, not like this. He'd been stationed on the medical research outpost near Proxima Centauri, helping test cross-species vaccines. Now he was the only one left to speak for billions. His hands trembled slightly as he remembered the last message he'd received from his sister Maya, just 5 months ago. Her face had been calm, her eyes bright with something he couldn't name. "Don't worry about us, Eli," she'd said. "We're not leaving. We're becoming." He hadn't understood then. He still didn't. Back in the chamber, General Torvin of the Draken Hegemony rose, his armored exoskeleton clanking softly. "This silence is not peace," he boomed. "It is strategy. Humans have always pushed boundaries, colonizing unstable worlds, sharing dangerous technology with pre-warp civilizations, even altering their own genetics without council approval. Now they vanish just as we prepare to hold them accountable. I say we treat this as an act of defiance. Seal the Sol system. Declare them rogue," a softer voice followed. Mira Solon of the Verdant Concord floated forward in her vine-woven pod, her leaf-like skin rustling gently. "Or perhaps they are gone not by choice of war, but by choice of something else," she offered. "We have seen no signs of invasion, no wreckage, no energy spikes of conflict. What if they chose to leave quietly, not as enemies, but as something new?" The debate swirled, but Speaker Vorak raised a hand and the chamber fell still. "We require facts, not theories," he said. "And we have one witness who may provide them." He turned toward the side entrance. "Bring in Eli Dawson." Guards escorted Eli into the chamber. He walked slowly, still weak from illness, but held his head high. All eyes fixed on him, the last human. He felt small, exposed like a single leaf in a hurricane. He stopped before the empty chair, hesitated, then placed his hand on its back for support. The wood felt warm, familiar. "Eli Dawson," Vorak said gently, "you were off-world for medical reasons. You are not accused of any wrongdoing, but you are human. You may know something we do not. Tell us what happened to your people." Eli swallowed. His throat was dry. He looked out at the sea of alien faces, none of them human, none of them smiling. He thought of Earth, of rain on Chicago streets, of his mother's garden in Oregon, of kids laughing in Mumbai parks. All gone quiet. "I don't know everything," he began, his voice rough but steady. "But I know they didn't run. They didn't fight. They didn't die in war." He paused, remembering Maya's words again. They made a choice. A big one. And they made it together. A Draken delegate scoffed. "Together. Humans can barely agree on what to eat for breakfast." Eli turned toward the sound. "You're wrong," he said, firmer now. "We argued, yes. We messed up a lot. But when it mattered, when cities burned, when plagues spread, when ships failed in deep space, we always came together. Not perfectly, but we tried." He looked down at the data capsule on the chair. "That's from them. From Earth. Sent right before the silence started. I haven't opened it." I was told to bring it here, to you. Vorik nodded. Then open it now. Eli picked up the capsule. It was cool to the touch, humming faintly. He pressed his thumb to the sensor, still keyed to human DNA, and it clicked open. A soft light rose from within, projecting a single line of text into the air above the podium. We are not gone. We are changed. Do not mourn us. Learn from us. Silence returned, deeper this time. Not suspicious, but thoughtful. Even General Torvin seemed unsettled. What does it mean? Asked a young delegate from the Lyra cluster. Eli shook his head. I don't know yet, but I think they wanted us to figure it out. Not just me, all of you. He looked around the chamber, meeting as many eyes as he could. Humans weren't perfect, but we believed in trying, in growing. Maybe this silence, is just the next step. Speaker Vorik studied the glowing words for a long moment. Then he turned to the assembly. The council will not pass judgment today. We will investigate. We will listen. And we will give Eli Dawson the chance to find the truth. He looked at Eli. You will be granted provisional speaking rights. You will work with our investigators, and you will tell us what your people became. Eli nodded, relief and dread mixing in his chest. He wasn't ready, but he was all they had. As he stepped back from the empty chair, he felt its weight. Not just wood and memory, but responsibility. The galaxy watched, waiting, and somewhere far away in the quiet heart of the Sol system, Earth stood empty, holding its breath, waiting too. Eli Dawson walked through the empty streets of New Chicago like a ghost in his own past. The city stood untouched, windows clean, hover cars parked neatly, streetlights glowing softly at dusk. But no voices, no footsteps, no laughter. Just wind whispering through open doors and the hum of maintenance drones gliding along sidewalks, sweeping leaves that no one had left behind. He wore a standard-issue environmental suit, though the air was perfectly breathable. It wasn't the air he feared. It was the silence. He had returned to Earth with a small council team after weeks of debate and preparation. The Sol system had been declared a neutral zone, open only to scientific observation. Eli insisted on coming. If anyone can understand what happened, he told Speaker Vorik, it's someone who knew what home sounded like. Now, standing in the shadow of the old Skyreach Tower, where he'd once watched fireworks with his father, he wondered if understanding was even possible. His sister Maya's apartment was exactly as she'd left it. A half-finished cup of tea sat on the table, still warm to the touch when he first arrived, though that was 3 days ago. Her journal lay open on the desk. Not digital, real paper, ink smudged from her fingers. Eli read it slowly. She wrote about dreams of light, of feeling connected to everyone at once, of a quiet hum beneath the noise of the world. In the last entry, dated the day before all signals stopped, she wrote, We're ready. Not scared, just done with being separate. Downstairs, Council Investigator Kalen of the Zenthar reviewed data from Earth's global network. Tall, gray-skinned, with eyes that never blinked, Kalen spoke in short, precise sentences. No signs of mass evacuation, he said, scrolling through orbital scans. No ships launched. No underground bunkers activated. Energy grid still running at normal levels. Food synthesizers stocked. Hospitals clean. It's as if everyone stepped out for a moment and never came back. Eli nodded, staring at a child's drawing taped to a lamppost. A son with a smiling face labeled, Daddy comes home. They didn't leave, he said quietly. They just stopped being here. Kalen tilted his head. That is not physically possible. Maybe not for you, Eli replied. But humans believed in things we couldn't explain. Love, hope, forgiveness. Maybe this was another one. The team moved to Geneva, where the old United Earth Command building stood. Inside, the main server room glowed with soft blue light. Chloe Reed, the council's youngest xenophysicist, tapped at a console. Her fingers flew over symbols that shifted like liquid. There's something strange in the quantum backup logs, she said. Not data, more like echoes. Emotional imprints. Like someone recorded a feeling and saved it as code. Eli watched over her shoulder. Can you play it? Chloe hesitated. It's not sound. It's not image. It's resonance. You'd have to feel it, not hear it. She connected a neural interface band and placed it gently on Eli's temple. Just relax. Don't fight it. The moment the band activated, Eli gasped. It wasn't a memory. It was a wave, warm, calm, vast. He felt millions of hands holding his, millions of hearts beating in time. No fear, no anger. Just peace, deep and endless, like floating in a quiet sea under stars. Tears rolled down his cheeks. He saw flashes, not pictures, but sensations. A mother hugging her child, an old man planting a tree, strangers sharing bread in a ruined city. All of it wrapped in that same quiet hum Maya had written about. When it ended, he was on his knees, breathing hard. Chloe helped him up. "What was that?" she asked, her voice hushed. "That," Eli whispered, "was them, all of them, together." Back at the temporary base in Reykjavik, chosen for its stable geology and clean energy grid, Eli tried to explain what he'd felt. Kalen remained skeptical. Emotional resonance cannot replace physical evidence. Where are their bodies? Their ships? Their AI cores? They didn't need ships anymore, Eli said. And maybe they didn't need bodies either. Noah Briggs, the council's linguist, leaned forward. He was quiet, thoughtful, with kind eyes and a habit of twisting a small stone between his fingers. In ancient human myths, he said, there are stories of people ascending, leaving the earth behind to become stars or spirits or light. We always thought it was poetry. But what if they found a way to make it real? Kalen scoffed. Poetry does not shut down a planetary civilization. But unity might, Chloe said softly. Look at the data. In the final weeks, global conflict dropped to 0. Resource sharing hit 100%. Even rival nations opened their borders freely. It wasn't forced. It was chosen. Every single person agreed. Eli remembered news feeds from those last days. Not panic, but calm. People hugging in streets. Old enemies sharing meals. Artists painting murals of hands joined across oceans. He'd thought it was some global holiday. Now he knew better. One evening, alone on a hill overlooking the silent Atlantic, Eli played Maya's last message again. Her face filled the small screen, smiling. We're not leaving, Eli, we're becoming. And it's beautiful. Don't be sad, be proud. Tell them we chose to go quiet, because we finally learned how to listen. He sat there for hours, watching the moon rise over the empty ocean. No boats, no planes, just water and sky and stars. For the first time since he'd left Proxima, he didn't feel alone. He felt watched over, loved. Not by ghosts, but by something new. Something that had grown from all the best parts of humanity and left the rest behind. The next morning, the team found something in the Arctic data vault, a hidden file labeled Convergence Protocol. It contained logs, schematics, and final statements from scientists, leaders, and ordinary citizens. They had built a global network not of wires but of thought. Using quantum entanglement and neural harmonics, they linked every willing mind into a single field of awareness. It wasn't death. It was transformation, and it required total consent. No one was forced. No one was left behind who didn't choose to go. Eli read the final entry, signed by thousands of names, including Maya's. We step beyond form to find forever. We do not vanish. We awaken. He closed the file and looked at his team. Kalen's expression had softened. Chloe wiped her eyes. Noah held his stone tightly. They didn't fully understand, but they believed him now. Eli knew what he had to do. He would return to the council, not with proof they could measure, but with truth they could feel. Because humanity hadn't disappeared. They had simply become too quiet for the galaxy to hear, unless someone listened with their heart. The council chamber buzzed with tension as Eli Dawson stepped onto the central platform once more. This time he wasn't alone. Beside him stood Chloe Reed, Noah Briggs, and even Kalen, who had reluctantly agreed to present their findings. The data from Earth sat in a secure drive at Eli's belt. But he knew numbers and scans wouldn't be enough. The council needed to understand something that couldn't be measured, something that had to be felt. Speaker Vorak called the session to order. His voice carried the weight of expectation. You have returned from Sol with new information. Present it clearly. Eli took a breath. He looked out at the sea of faces, skeptical, curious, impatient. General Torvin sat rigid in his armored seat, arms crossed. Mira Solon watched with gentle eyes, her leafy fingers clasped together. Eli began not with facts but with memory. When I was a boy, he said, my teacher told us that humans were special not because we were strong or smart, but because we kept trying even when we failed. We built hospitals after wars. We planted trees in bombed cities. We sang songs in the dark. He paused. What happened on Earth wasn't an end. It was the result of that trying. For once, we got it right. He described the empty cities, the untouched homes, the drones still cleaning streets no one walked. He spoke of Maya's journal, of the global calm in the final days, of the convergence protocol they'd found buried in ice and code. Chloe stepped forward then, projecting a simple graph. Energy use didn't spike. No weapons fired. No ships launched. Instead, neural activity across the planet rose in perfect harmony during the last hour. Not chaos, synchronization. General Torvin stood abruptly. Synchronization is control. You are describing mass mind-wiping. A cult event, dangerous, unnatural. No, Noah said softly. He held up a small device. We found thousands of personal logs, letters, voice notes, art, all saying the same thing. They chose this. Freely. Willingly. One woman wrote to her granddaughter, "I'm not dying, my love. I'm joining the song." Another man recorded himself laughing with his dog one last morning, saying, "We had a good run. Now it's time to rest in the light." Noah's voice cracked slightly. This wasn't fear. It was peace, Mirasolin floated closer. In my culture, we believe consciousness is like water. It can be in a cup, a river, or the sky as vapor. It changes form but never disappears. Perhaps humans simply evaporated into something larger. Torvin snorted. Poetry again. The galaxy runs on law, not dreams. If they abandon their bodies, what stops them from returning in new forms? What stops them from influencing us without our knowledge? They could be watching us right now. Eli met his gaze. If they were watching, General, they'd help, not harm. That's who they were. Who they are. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the neural interface band. I can't prove it with words, but I can let you feel it. Just for a moment. One delegate. Anyone who volunteers, silence fell. No one moved. Then to everyone's surprise, Mirasolin extended a vine-like tendril. I will. Chloe fitted the band gently around Mira's sensory node. The chamber lights dimmed. A soft hum filled the air. Mira went still. Her leaves trembled. Tears, clear sap-like droplets, rolled down her cheeks. After a full minute, she opened her eyes wide with wonder. It's love, she whispered. Not romantic. Not selfish. Just pure care. Like the whole world holding you. She turned to the assembly. They didn't vanish. They became kindness itself. Torvin shook his head. Emotion is not evidence. It is manipulation. But others were swayed. A young delegate from the ocean world of Nereus spoke up. My people once faced extinction. Humans sent aid without asking for anything back. They gave us seeds, medicine, hope. If this is what they became, I say we honor it. The debate stretched for hours. Some demanded quarantine of the Sol system forever. Others argued for a memorial. A few, like Kalen, now admitted the data pointed to voluntary transcendence, not threat. Finally, Speaker Vorak raised his hand. We cannot declare a species extinct if they have not died. We cannot punish them if they have not broken law. But we also cannot ignore the risk of the unknown. He looked at Eli. You ask for understanding, but the Council needs time. One more cycle. During this time you will find undeniable proof of their fate. Not feeling, not poetry, proof. Eli's heart sank. A cycle was nearly a year. But he nodded. I'll find it. Later, in the quiet of his quarters, Eli replayed Maya's last message. He missed her voice. He missed Earth's noise, the honking of old ground cars, the chatter of markets, the sound of rain on rooftops. Now all that remained was silence and doubt. Chloe found him staring out the window at Xylos Prime's twin moons. You did well today, she said. Not well enough, he replied. They still think we're hiding something. Maybe you are, she said gently. Maybe you haven't found the whole truth yet. That night, Eli dreamed of Earth. Not empty, but glowing. Every person a soft light rising like fireflies into the sky, joining a vast, gentle web of awareness. When he woke, he knew where to look next. The convergence didn't just happen on Earth, it started somewhere. And if he could find the origin point, the first spark, he might find the proof the Council needed. He requested access to deep space records from the outer Sol system, specifically the Oort cloud. Old logs showed strange energy readings from a forgotten station out there, Odyssey Station, just hours before the silence began. It had been built for long-range cosmic observation, mostly abandoned for decades, but in the final days its power surged. Someone had been there. Eli gathered his team. If humanity left a final message, he said, it won't be in words. It'll be in the place where they first touch the edge of what's possible. Chloe checked the star charts. It's a 6-week journey. Then we leave tomorrow, Eli said. As their ship prepared for launch, Eli stood on the observation deck, watching Xylos Prime shrink behind them. He thought of the empty chair in the council chamber. He thought of Maya. He thought of billions of humans choosing to become something the galaxy couldn't see but might one day understand. He didn't know what waited in the dark beyond Pluto, but he knew one thing for sure. They hadn't run. They had reached, and he would follow their light even if it led him into silence. The ship Wayfarer drifted through the icy dark beyond Pluto, its engines silent, its hull frosted with interstellar dust. Inside, Eli Dawson stared at the main screen, where a faint energy signature pulsed like a heartbeat. It came from Odyssey Station, a lonely outpost built into a comet's core, forgotten by most, but now the only clue left in a silent solar system. Chloe Reed monitored the readings, her fingers dancing over the console. Chronoton emissions are off the scale, she murmured. Not natural. Not weaponized. It's structured, like a song made of time. Noah Briggs checked their suits. Radiation levels are safe. Atmosphere inside is stable. Someone kept the life support running until the very end. He looked at Eli. You ready? Eli nodded, though his stomach twisted. This was it, the edge of everything. If answers existed, they were here. The shuttle detached from Wayfarer and glided toward the station, its lights cutting through the endless night. The structure was old, patched with solar panels and rusted metal, but at its heart, a soft blue glow pulsed from the central dome. Inside, the air was cold but clean. No bodies, no signs of struggle, just empty corridors and humming machines. Kalen scanned the walls with his sensor wand. Power source is active, core temperature stable. It's as if the station is waiting. They followed the strongest signal to the observation deck. There, beneath a massive dome of reinforced glass, stars stretched in every direction, cold and bright. In the center of the room stood a single chair, facing outward, and on its armrest another data capsule, identical to the one left at the council. Eli picked it up. It warmed in his hand. Chloe connected it to their portable decoder. It's not text this time, she said, frowning. It's quantum encoded. Not meant for eyes, for feeling. Eli didn't hesitate. He placed the neural band on his head. Play it. The room vanished. Not into darkness, but into light. He wasn't standing anymore. He was everywhere at once. He felt Earth's oceans breathing. He heard children laughing in Tokyo, Nairobi, Buenos Aires, all at the same moment. He saw scientists in Oslo sharing data with farmers in Kenya, artists in Mumbai painting with light, elders in Alaska telling stories under auroras. And beneath it all, that hum, the same calm, loving presence he'd felt before, but deeper, wider, like the whole planet had taken one final, unified breath. Then came the shift. Not pain, not fear. A gentle release. Like stepping out of a heavy coat after a long winter, millions of minds letting go of bodies not because they were broken, but because they were ready. They didn't die. They dissolved into something greater, a shared awareness woven into the fabric of space itself. The convergence wasn't escape. It was homecoming. Eli gasped as the vision faded. Tears streamed down his face. He looked at his team. Chloe was crying silently. Noah held his stone so tightly his knuckles were white. Even Kalen's usual stoicism had cracked. His eyes glistened. What was that? Kalen whispered. That, Eli said, voice shaking, was the last moment. Not of death, of joining. Chloe pulled up the station logs. Odyssey wasn't just watching stars, she said. It was the anchor point, the final node in the network. They used its deep space position to stabilize the quantum field during the transition. This station held the door open, so no one got left behind. Noah walked to the window, pressing his hand against the cold glass. They planned it perfectly. Every detail. They made sure it was safe, voluntary, complete. He turned, eyes full of awe. They didn't just disappear. They became part of the universe itself. Eli walked to the chair in the center of the room. It faced Earth's direction, though the planet was too far to see. He ran his fingers over the worn fabric. Someone had sat here watching their home one last time before stepping into the light. He imagined Maya might have been here, or someone like her, calm and certain. He found a small note tucked in the chair's pocket, handwritten in ink that hadn't faded. It read, "We go not because we gave up, but because we finally understood. We are not lost. We are listening, always." Back on the shuttle, Eli recorded a message for the council, not with words, but with the raw sensory echo they'd recovered. Chloe encoded it into a format even non-human minds could partially interpret, a blend of light, tone, and emotional resonance. "They might not feel it the way we did," she said, "but they'll sense the truth in it." Kalen reviewed the physical evidence, power logs, neural sync patterns, quantum decay trails. "There is no deception here," he admitted. This was a coordinated, peaceful transition. No violence, no coercion. Only choice. He looked at Eli. "I was wrong. Humans did not break galactic law. They transcended it." As Wayfarer turned toward Xylos Prime, Eli stood alone on the observation deck again. The Oort cloud stretched behind them, silent and vast. But now he didn't feel emptiness. He felt presence, a quiet hum in the dark. He closed his eyes and whispered, "I understand now." He didn't know if they heard him, but for the first time since the silence began, he didn't need an answer. He carried the proof not in data, but in his heart. Humanity hadn't vanished. They had simply become too big for bodies, too kind for borders, too whole for words, and soon the galaxy would know it too. The journey home would take weeks. But Eli wasn't afraid anymore. He knew what he had to say. Not to defend humans, but to honor them, because the greatest act of their civilization wasn't building cities or reaching stars. It was choosing altogether to let go and become something beautiful in the quiet. The council chamber was quieter than usual when Eli Dawson returned. No murmurs, no shifting in seats, no impatient taps of claws or fins. The delegates sat still as if holding their breath. Even General Torvin looked less certain. His armored shoulders slumped slightly. Eli walked to the center without fear. He carried no weapon, no datapad, no grand speech. Just the truth wrapped in silence. Speaker Vorik rose. "You have returned before the cycle ended. Do you bring proof?" Eli nodded. "Not proof you can hold, but proof you can feel." He turned to Chloe, who activated the projector. A soft sphere of light appeared above the floor, not bright but warm like dawn on a quiet hill. Then came the sound. Not music, not words, but a gentle resonance that filled the chamber like a shared breath. Delegates gasped. Some covered their sensory organs. Others leaned forward, eyes wide. Mirasolin began to weep openly. Even Torvin's rigid posture softened as the wave of calm, unity, and peace washed over them all. It lasted only 30 seconds. When it ended, silence returned, but different now. Lighter, changed. Vorik stood motionless for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice quieter than before. "This is not deception. This is not fear. This is completion." He looked at Eli. "Your people did not flee. They finished something," Eli nodded. "They chose to become more than bodies, more than borders. They joined together, not as one mind, but as one heart. And they left the door open in case anyone else ever wanted to listen." Torvin stood slowly. He did not argue. Instead, he bowed his head, a gesture rare among the Draken. "I misjudged them," he said. "I saw silence as threat, but it was respect. They did not shout their truth. They lived it. Then they let go." He turned to the assembly. "I withdraw my call for quarantine. Let Saul be remembered, not restricted." One by one, delegates voiced agreement. The Verdant Concord proposed a memorial garden on Xylos Prime, seeded with earth plants. The Nerians offered to guard the Sol system's outer rim as a sacred trust. Even the Zenthar Council, known for cold logic, declared the Convergence Protocol a valid evolutionary path, though not for all. Vorik raised his hand. "Then let it be written. The human species has not been destroyed. They have transcended physical form through voluntary, peaceful means. They are no longer bound by galactic law, for they exist beyond its reach. The Sol system shall be designated a protected quiet zone, untouched, unoccupied, honored. The chamber filled with soft sounds of approval, chimes, hums, rustling leaves." Eli felt tears well up, but he did not look away. He thought of Maya, of his parents, of every teacher, friend, stranger who had ever smiled at him on a crowded street. They were gone from the world, but not from the universe. And now the galaxy knew. After the session, Eli stood alone by the empty human chair. He placed a small earthstone on its seat, a river rock he'd carried from Oregon. Then he walked out, not as a delegate, but as a keeper of memory. Weeks later, he returned to Earth. Not as part of a mission, but by choice. The council granted him permanent residence in the Quiet Zone, caretaker of a world that no longer needed caretaking. He lived in a small house near the Pacific coast where waves still rolled in and out, and birds still sang to an audience of trees. He spent his days walking empty streets, tending gardens that grew wild but beautiful, and talking to the wind as if it might answer. Sometimes in the stillness of night he'd sit on the porch and watch the stars, and sometimes, just sometimes, he'd feel it again. That soft hum, that gentle warmth in his chest. Not a voice, not a vision, just a presence, like a hand on his shoulder, like a whisper in his bones that said, "We're here." He never saw them, never heard them speak, but he knew. They hadn't left. They had simply stepped into the quiet space between heartbeats, between stars, between lives, and from there they watched over everything they once loved. Years passed. Eli grew older. His hair turned gray. His steps slowed, but his eyes stayed bright. Visitors came sometimes, scholars, poets, curious children from other worlds, drawn by the legend of the humans who chose to disappear together. Eli would tell them stories, not of war or glory, but of small kindnesses. A shared umbrella in the rain, a stranger paying for coffee, a lullaby sung in the dark. That's who we were, he'd say, and that's what we became. One evening, as the sun dipped below the ocean, Eli sat on his porch wrapped in a blanket. The air was cool, the sky clear. He closed his eyes and breathed deeply. And in that breath he felt it stronger than ever, the hum, the warmth, the love. It wrapped around him like a blanket woven from a billion quiet hearts. He smiled. Not with sadness, with peace. He didn't know if he would join them when his time came. But he hoped so. Because the greatest thing humanity ever did wasn't reaching the stars. It was learning at last how to be still, how to listen, how to let go without fear, without regret, without noise, and in that silence they found forever. The galaxy moved on. New species rose, old empires fell. But the story of the humans who vanished not in fire but in grace became a quiet lesson whispered across star systems, a reminder that sometimes the bravest thing a civilization can do is choose to step away, not in defeat, but in love. And on a small blue world, empty but not alone, the wind kept singing their song,